always sung music that was written for castratos, and other singers have done so too. But why does nobody talk about the tragedy that this fantastic music involves? Can you imagine? Today we know about 100 names of successful castrato singers, but in 17th and 18th century, hundreds of thousands of boys were castrated, that is, sacrificed in the name of music. The album is called Sacrificium because it relates to the sacrifice in the name of art of thousands of children. It is a shocking story. In the middle of 18th century, more than 4,000 boys were castrated in Italy every year. And this because poor parents, teachers, and greedy patrons hope that one or two of them will be awarded with beauty, excellence, fame, stardom, and money. I picked an example, Naples and the School of Porpora. Porpora was the teacher of some of the most famous castratos of all times, Farinelli and Caffarelli. I chose a selection of magnificent music written for the greatest student of Porpora. It's very difficult to say what the castrato voice sounds like. There are recordings by one of the last Roman castratos, Moreschi, but they are from 1902, I think, 1904, and therefore the quality is quite inferior. Many sources suggest that the castrato voice was more like a female voice. These arias show the extremes of virtuosity, breath control, imagination, emotion, expression, which castrato had. Immediately after castration, when the boys were about 7 years old, a rigid, really rigid music training began. They had to learn singing, but also to play instrument and improvise, studying literature and composition. They had to study for 6 to 8, 10 years, so they were extremely well educated. When you castrate a boy before puberty, his larynx will more or less remain the same and therefore retain a kind of high sound. But his body will grow in all kinds of ways because of his messed up hormones, and their chest and lungs became as large as those of grown men, sometimes even larger. It is the most virtuosic album I ever recorded, with the most challenging coloratura, but also the most heart-touching slow arias with literally breathtakingly long phrases. Ma qual sia parte capirte la sassosa fronte che quanto pesa pare. Castrato had also learned an incredible breath control. They could sing forever in arias of Araya Cadrò. For instance, there are coloraturas that run over nearly 35 bars. Farinelli could sing them easily, but for us today it is very, very hard and difficult for men and women. Some of the most demanding arias I found were slow arias where no virtuosity is required at all. So only profundity and expression and long breath, you know, the famous long breath. Thanks to St. Paul, women were forbidden to sing in church. And after some time, the church began to encourage the use of castrators in church and later even in opera houses. But at the same time, the church forbade castration under the threat of death penalty. This situation lasted for several hundred years. So, it's quite a strange attitude, don't you think? Castration is a very old and meaningful phenomenon. You can find it in ancient Egypt and Greece, and in the Bible, even in early church history. There is also all the connotations of sexual ambiguity, the change of genders, and it is also a major theme in psychology. Maybe it is easier for women to talk about all this because they have a bit more of distance to the idea of castration. You cannot deny that we still mutilate bodies for some kind of imaginate beauty. Just think of the anorexic fashion models, or people being pierced or placing themselves under the plastic surgeon knife. We know that all this is terrible, but we accept it because we think beauty is what some kind of fashion dictates. I chose Il Giardino Armonico and Giovanni Antonini because of their vitality, the virtuosity, energy and passion. So we recharge each other with the high voltage Italian energy we need for these unbelievably difficult arias. I'm extremely pleased that 10 years after the legendary Vivaldi album, we renew this wonderful collaboration. On the cover of my album, I wanted to show a strong image of female voice in a male body. The statue alludes to the Roman heroes that most operas at that time were about. And of course, many beautiful antique statues were damaged by later generation who thought they were too explicit or offensive. And finally, I wanted to show in a clear image the combination of beauty and cruelty.